Good things are truly worth the wait. Hi, I'm David Henry from Learn Stage Lighting, and in this video we're looking at a brand new MIDI controller that's actually designed for, drum roll please, lighting, yes! And I say good things are worth the wait because this review's been a good time coming, and then when I made the review initially, just like some other videos here on the channel, I found out afterwards that my microphone cord was bad and that audio was not captured. So, let's shoot this again. I'm really excited about this thing. Today, we are looking at the MIDIcraft Controller from MIDIcraft.de. Now, this one here that I've purchased, this review is all my opinion, and I spent my money to buy this thing and ship it to me. This guy is the MIDIcraft Mix from MIDIcraft, okay? And so, just to give you a brief introduction, these first popped on the scene. This idea was from a German lighting guy named Alex, who thought of this idea. He said, you know what? I want to buy a really good, a high quality MIDI controller for lighting. I want to make this thing. And he evidently, got with some people and had the expertise to actually carry this out, and it's really stinking cool. So, there's 3 versions of this thing. There are 4. There's one that's all buttons, one that's all faders, one that's all knobs, and then one that's a mixture, and this one is the mix. I chose to review that because I wanted to try out all of them, right? And without blowing my budget, that was the best way to do it. And so, when we talk about MIDI controllers, and I talk about MIDI controllers a lot here on the channel, right? I'm just going to unplug this for a second. When I talk about MIDI controllers, I love MIDI controllers with lighting. With a lot of pieces of software or lighting consoles, MIDI is one of those ways that you can customize your rig, add faders, add buttons, and do it in a really cost-effective way. Not only that, if you're a professional lighting designer, I know I love this, is that I can own something like this, keep it in my bag or my Pelican case, and whether I'm using, a Hog or an MA or an Onyx or whatever, I can dial this into their system and add faders to the console that the rental company is providing me, which I always appreciate as well because often you get 10 faders on smaller shows, and you always need more faders and buttons. So, with that said, let's talk about this unit. First things first, the physical, just to give you a little tour of it, is that it's going to connect to your computer via USB, okay, computer or console. However, it's got some different options. So it also has these network ports, which allow you to connect multiple devices together and then just have one USB going back to the computer. Each device will be connected via USB for power, but the computer or console will only need one data connection. Other things to note on the physical is you've got your faders, really high quality, rubberized, same with the encoders, and then the buttons, which are a really nice feeling button a la Grand MA, very similar to the style they use on their consoles. Okay, hey, this is coming from Germany, we're not surprised. So plugging it in here, you'll hear my computer beep in a second. It boots up, you get a little boot up animation across all the buttons. And the MIDIcraft device actually has processing on board and has a screen. And the really cool thing about this, okay, just to start to get into it, is that we're able to go in here and completely customize the MIDI notes that this unit puts out. And we can save those as different templates. So if you're working with a piece of software like DMX's, where maybe you want to program some faders in, and then you want to do some buttons for your scenes, well, the buttons have to be very specific MIDI notes, and you can make those happen here, right on the screen. No external configuration. There's an encoder with the screen. You press and turn through combinations. It walks you through it. You're able to get all of that. If you're using something more complex than, say, DMX's, there's a couple ways to map things as well. Simplest, you can actually come in here in this interface and enter your menu, and you can actually set the color of every button individually. So you can have different buttons be different colors, okay? You can set all the buttons as well. You can set up different presets and all that. Now, there's even more magic to this thing, okay? So I already really like this MIDI controller, and it was really easy to get set up, okay? I literally got the thing in the mail, which was a whole deal. According to Alex, a number of people in the US bought these things, and I was literally the last person to get it because it got lost somewhere in the middle, and then it got found, and then it showed up at my door like 3 months after I ordered it. Not Alex's fault at all. That's totally COVID and shipping and all that. It's what happened. And so configuration-wise, you can use this in a simple MIDI mode, and out of the network jacks even, you can get an adapter to go to a 5-pin mini jack, like if you're using a Grandame console, etc. With other consoles, you may want to connect via a computer. Again, this is going to be console by console. I go over some of my favorite consoles and how to connect MIDI to them in this video on MIDI. But if you really want to supercharge this thing and get it really easy to program, get it really easy to change the colors and all that, then I recommend looking at ShowCockpit. I've mentioned ShowCockpit here before. I've used it, and it's a really solid program, not made by this guy, but made by Ricardo Dias in Portugal. And when you put this guy into ShowCockpit mode, a few really cool things happen, okay? It just shows up in ShowCockpit, you add the device, it's easily configured, and then you're able to go in there and set the colors you want for different actions. So in my case, I use Onyx a lot. So I go into Onyx and I set basically what I want the colors to be for when cues are fading in or when they've already executed. Okay? And I'm able to customize that, map everything into Onyx, and be able to use it right on my desk here. Super easy. And I'm firing cues on it. I'm bringing the faders up and down. As I test this guy, everything is smooth, okay? These faders, they feel awesome. They're really high quality faders. In fact, with Onyx, so this guy retails, I think it's about 262 euros with the shipping. It's around there. In Europe, there's VAT, but the shipping's less. In the US, there's no VAT and the shipping's more because it's coming from Europe. But this guy, you know, I think is really cool, especially for my friends who use Onyx and myself, because you can go with Onyx, get an NX Touch. They're really inexpensive. They're like 500 bucks. You get 10 of those touch faders. But, you know, those faders, they're good and they're cool, but they're not the best feel ever, right? They're really inexpensive. They can work for a lot of shows, but if you want really smooth fades or really nice level of control, you're not going to find it with those faders. The whole unit's just too inexpensive for that. That's totally, totally understandable. Where this comes in is, in Onyx, if I attach an NX Touch, I've now unlocked OSC, which is how ShowCockpit communicates to Onyx. And so now, I can just pull this device right into ShowCockpit, map it to whatever faders I want, and now I've got my 10 faders on my NX Touch, I've got my 5 faders here, I've got these 5 encoders, which also can be faders. Okay, now some people kind of poo-poo the OSC in ShowCockpit, but I think it's great because you can set it in Onyx, just as a side note, to be a different device ID. And so what I like to do then is use bank 1 as my main bank on my NX Touch, maybe banks 1 and 2. I don't like to use a lot of banks. Then bank 3 or bank 10 or whatever can be these 5 faders and these 5 encoders. And then I could use these as playback buttons. I could use these as flash and go. Whatever you want to do. That's the cool thing about using MIDI controllers. And this MIDIcraft one is really stinking cool. I gotta tell you something, and Alex will be seeing this video too because I'll send it to him. I might have a MIDI controller problem, and I'm probably going to end up buying more of these at some point. As much as my wallet feels hurt by that, gosh. I mean, this thing is just, like, it crosses off so many check marks for me. Because it's small and easy to grab, but high quality. Okay, so previous, you could buy the Korg Nano control, and yeah, it's 60 bucks. But it feels so cheap, and if you're doing something like a corporate show where you need really fine-grained control, these faders are going to do it for you. Okay? You know, there's not a lot of downsides to this MIDI controller. Of course, console by console, you may need ShowCockpit, you may need other integration, and you're going to have to pay for that. But, gosh, if you're looking for a good MIDI controller for lighting, even audio, even video applications, I would give this guy a good look. I'm going to have some other MIDI controllers that I'm reviewing soon, but man, I really like this thing. I've been playing with it for a couple weeks. It's exceeded my expectations, which is good because, you know, I waited 3 months for it, and so I was starting to get to the point of like, is this thing really going to be worth it? But it was worth the wait. And it's a super nice unit. The cost is really reasonable, I think, for what you get. And it's designed, you know, actually for lighting. So check it out. Again, this isn't sponsored in any way by Alex. I paid for this thing. I waited the long 3 months for it to come across the ocean, and now I get to use it. And it's an awesome, I just think it's a cool device, and I love supporting people that are doing really cool things. I mean, this guy, Alex, he's an independent guy. You know, he's running this small company. It's a few people from what I understand. And they're just making, you know, this happens in our industry. You get a small company making just a really exceptional product that answers a need that a lot of people have. I mean, if you think about it, you can use this with the MIDI adapter with the Grand MA console, or if you have a console connected, I think you can use it with Grand MA on PC through MIDI or through OSC. Okay, and if you were to buy a command wing, I mean, that's, gosh, you know, an MA3 command wing has 10 faders on it, but it's like $7 grand. Back in MA2, it was like $6 grand, and it had 6 faders. This could double your fader count for under $300. So, with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know. I'm just curious if you have any other questions about this thing. I think it's super cool. It's really straightforward. It's one of those it just works kind of things. But then, if you want to dive deeper with something like ShowCockpit, you can get even more control out of it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to catch more videos on how to begin creating great lighting. And if you're new to stage lighting, head over to learnstagelighting.com. I've got a free guide for you that's going to walk you through how to get started with lighting, and it's going to be customized to the type of lighting you do, whether that be band, church, theater, or DJ lighting. So hop over right here on that link to learnstagelighting.com. We'll get you your free guide, and then we'll see you in our next video here on YouTube.